Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to August, the August meeting on the 26th of August for Planning Committee West. Thank you for attending. We are quorate, so just going to check. Have we got apologies for absence? We've got apologies, I think, from Andy Sully and Derek Perry. I'm not sure of any others, Josh.
Got apologies from Councillor Dave Mansell as well, Chair.
Dave Mansell. Okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any apologies? Sorry, Andy, he's going to be online. Okay, that's fine. Okay, well, in the absence of my colleague Derek Perry, protocol suggests that we look for a vice chair for this meeting. I'm going to propose Stephen Pugsley. I don't know whether Stephen, you'd be happy to be nominated as vice chair should the need arise. Should I have a? Well, on the basis that you are at least prepared to do it, Stephen, and in the unlikely event that we may have to do it, I will endeavour to ensure that it isn't a difficult. Entirely up to you, as you are deeply reluctant to be called vice chair. I'm perfectly happy if you remain where you are, wherever you're comfortable. But thank you for that. And thank you for agreeing, Stephen, albeit reluctantly. Okay. Right, moving on to our minutes from the previous meeting. Is it your wish that I sign these as a true record of that meeting? Can I see a proposer, please? Thank you, Habib. A seconder. Thank you, Nick. And those in favour? Yep, that's passed. Thank you. So I'll sign those in due course. Okay. Are there any declarations of interest other than the normal noted declarations of interest? Not Will.
Yes, I was at the Ninehead Parish Council meeting that discussed item 5. Listened to what they had to say, and there's a member of the Parish Council is here today, but I did not fetter my discretion.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for that. I'm sure you will bring that your thoughts to that application item when it comes up. Okay, Caroline, did you have your hand up?
It might not be relevant, but just in case it is, obviously my husband, who's the local MP, has obviously been doing lobbying around Wellington Station, getting government support, securing, confirming government support. So that's kind of tangentially related to one of the items, but I don't consider my discretion in any way fettered.
I don't think you fettered your discretion. Okay, I'm not seeing any others. Okay, public question time. No, Councillor Irvine. Right, Mr. Irvine, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Lovely. Okay, Mr. Irvine, I have agreed to allow public question times on this subject, but obviously, you know why you're here, and you have a statement and some questions. What I'm going to do is allow you to have your 3 minutes, okay, and then I will ask the officers to make a suitable response to you. Good afternoon to you and welcome to the committee. When you start speaking, your 3 minutes begin, sir. Okay.
Thank you, Chair, for permission to speak and to the committee today. I won't waste time by reading out my statement verbatim, but I'll try and summarise key reasons why Watchet Town Council is concerned. Your committee approved a planning application 337-23034 for 3 one-bedroom flats on a shop in Niddymore Road, which was a converted house to a shop, but it's in a residential area surrounded by other residential homes. We as council supported it enthusiastically because we need accommodation like that. However, the planning officer recommended and committee insisted on frosted windows, 2 privacy screens, 3 a staircase angled away from direct views over neighbouring properties, and 4, no access to flat roofing. However, as built, it breached all those conditions, with the owner claiming they had to change because Somerset Council Building Control insisted on it for health and safety reasons. No mention has been made of this to the Town Council or residents in answers, and it's not published on your website. So the first point is, if you approve something without full knowledge of the requirements of building control, surely it's a problem or a fault in your system. When complaints were received from residents and Town Council, rather than trying to find a solution meeting those planning conditions, your officers have sought to regularise it by going through a non-material variation, NMA 3725002, which they would approve without it coming back through committee. Having found this to be a faulty approach, advised the applicant to withdraw it before it was rejected and to resubmit, and also suggesting we didn't need to speak to committee today. We can't help feeling it's an attempt to protect the applicant and cover up faults within your process, rather than protect your and our residents and council taxpayers. What are considered minor non-conformances by officers are considered major issues by residents who have to live with them. And that's why the Town Council respectfully asks committee to 1, call in any decision on this and any further applications to modify it so that the committee can give full consideration as a committee to the concerns and objections that we're raising. 2, answer why the officers' report and planning committee decision to approve O34 did not identify that building control requirements were not being met, and for transparency, ensure that any building control stipulations are published on the portal because they might form part of a further objection. If some changes are necessary to meet the conditions, ask officers and evaluate as a committee how best to meet the original privacy conditions stipulated in the conditions so that they could be met, whilst taking appropriate action to enforce action to meet those original planning conditions. I'll finish by saying, if you give the impression that any breaches are considered minor and can be amended without enforcement, this will give carte blanche to others to ignore any planning conditions you set.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Irvine. I'm going to turn now to Zach Elwood, who is going to give a response.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, just to say that when the original request for Watchet Town Council to address committee came in, this was a live application for a non-material amendment under section 96A of the Town and Country Planning Act. Since then, as Mr. Irwin, Councillor Irwin said, the application has been withdrawn, so we're not dealing with the application itself, albeit we still have the issue of the development that's been undertaken not in accordance with the approved Planning Commission. So it's quite right to say that application 337/2334 granted permission for the conversion of 2 first floor flats into 3 self-contained units. Just to say this did include a staircase, an independent external access, albeit at 90-degree angle to what's actually been implemented on site. As mentioned, the as-built development does not accord with the previous planning permission. It has therefore been the subject of an enforcement investigation. This led to the application for a non-material amendment under section 96A of the Town and Country Planning Act. Just to be clear, there's no requirement to undertake publicity on applications made under 96A or to consult with town and parish councils or third parties. Such applications are not assessed on their relative planning merits, unlike an application for full planning permission or made for a revision to a condition under section 73. Such applications are only considered as to whether or not the changes from the original permission would be non-material. This is a matter for the decision maker, and I should make it clear that helpfully the term non-material is not specifically defined in the Planning Acts. In this instance, however, when the application got to the planning officer, they spoke with their team leader and myself, and we believed that we were of the opinion that the changes that had been implemented on site went beyond what could reasonably be determined as non-material, and therefore we advised the applicant that it was our intention to refuse to grant a non-material amendment under the application. in view of the fact they were facing a refusal, the applicant then unilaterally withdrew the non-material amendment application. I understand they do intend to resubmit a new application under section 73 of the Town and Country Planning Act, and this will seek revisions to the wording of the what we would call the approved plans condition. You'll see that on your permissions where we list the drawings that are approved as part of the permission. So they'll be seeking to amend the wording of that condition to reflect the development as built, but effectively it would create a brand new planning permission if that were to be granted. At the moment, that application hasn't been submitted, so we have no application before us at the moment. Application NMA 3725002 cannot, of course, be called in as it's now been withdrawn. And whilst I note the request and the concerns raised by Watchet Town Council, that their request to call in future applications, I believe it's premature for the Town Council to request a call in on a future application that has yet to be submitted. Having said that, they'll be given an opportunity to make comments at that stage. They'll be consulted and given 21 days, as usual. If the officer recommendation at that appropriate time is contrary to the views of Watchet Town Council, as you will be aware, the application will be referred to the chair for a decision as to whether or not to refer it to committee or not in the usual way. And obviously we fully respect whatever decision the chairman makes in that regard. The officer's report and decision on 3/37/23/24, which was for the 3 flats, did not comment on whether the proposed development would comply with the building regulations. That's simply because it's not the job of the planning department to look at that. Building regulations is dealt with under completely separate legislation, and as members will be aware, just because permission or approval is given under one regime, i.e. planning or building regulations, does not mean that it will necessarily be acceptable under the other. The building regulations, whilst there's a request for us to publish the building regulations on this, I don't personally believe it's the responsibility of the local planning authority to comment on that. The building regulations are a nationally published regulations, and they can be found online through a simple Google search. In terms of the as-built development, we do have a situation where it's unauthorised at present. So we're aware of that. It still has an open enforcement case, but enforcement action will be held in abeyance pending the consideration of a new application under section 73 for a variation to the drawings. This is on the proviso it's received within a reasonable time scale, i.e., we're not going to sit on it for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months and await an application. If it's not coming, then we will take appropriate action. And the concerns around residential amenity and privacy are of course important, and they would be subject to consideration and proper assessment under any new application, and any new application would be publicised, and we would give members of the public and parish council and constatees will be given 21 days minimum to make comments, which will be taken into account either if it's determined under delegated powers or if it's referred to the committee for your determination. I think that's all I wanted to say at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. I hope that answers your questions, Ms. Irvin. Just for the avoidance of any doubt, when any application is referred to me as chair to see whether or not I think it should come to committee, I read the case officer's report. I, generally speaking, take a site visit as well, and then determine whether or not I think it's necessary for it to come to committee for determination or whether it can be decided under delegated powers. But I do not make that decision on any application until A, I have read the report, and B, I have satisfied myself as to whether or not I think it should or should not be necessary to come to committee. I hope you find that reassuring. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time and courtesy.
I'm really sorry. Can I raise a procedural matter? Because I see on the screen there is somebody here called Gwil's Note Taker Otter AI. And I've no idea who that is. But I was on an online meeting, or I was included in an online meeting last week in the village, and somebody signed me up to Otter to take the notes of that but I've no idea how it's got from my home computer potentially onto this, unless it's somehow got through my contacts. Well, I'm clearly I have a problem because this thing is really intrusive. So I'm very sorry about that. But Councillor Pugsley drew my attention to it, and I'm assuming it's to do with me. I'm going to have to sort it out when I get home. But if you could remove it from the meeting, it would be very helpful.
I think, Mr. Barrett, if you'll remove them from the meeting, I see you've done it already. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I-
I've no idea how it
Let
happened.
us know how you get on.
Yes,
Okay.
or I'm sure the AI will tell you.
Well, I'm sure somebody will tell me, yes. AI will tell me that I'm wrong, yes. Yeah. Okay. Right, in that case, we'll go back to the meat of our meeting now. And the first application is item 5 on our agenda, which is application 42/23/0056. And it's to consider an application for approval of reserve matters following outline application 43/23/0056 for the approval of layout, scale and appearance of the internal Spine Road pedestrians and cycle link and the associated surface water drainage infrastructure. And I believe that Simon Fox is our presenting officer. Simon, good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So this planning application to which the Chair referred was actually determined in May. So this is a follow-on matter related to that outline planning application, which is to seek adherence with the requirements of a legal agreement signed in connection with that planning application. As members will be aware, when a planning application is approved, you can attach planning conditions to that approval, whether it be an outline, a full application, or indeed a reserve matters. In this case, the planning application required a Section 106 agreement to be agreed to secure a host of planning obligations. And within the planning obligation, there are a host of requirements and applicants can and typically do write to the planning authority to ensure that they've discharged the requirements of the legal obligation as well, incrementally or as a whole. So this matter relates to the alternative access, and it's not the first time I'll be saying alternative access today. And so I'll go through the slides. First of all, an admission of guilt. I've made a mistake. Put my hands up. I've made 3 mistakes, but it's the same mistake 3 times. So hopefully you'll forgive me. I've misquoted the financial sum. I've said it's 309,400, and it's actually 359,000. So call that inflation, if you will. So this is the application site. You'll recall the site known as Longforth, north of Taunton Road in Wellington. This area here. You'll recall this is the train station site. This was the red line, bordering Ninehead Road, bordering Taunton Road, and a little inset here where the supermarket is now located. This was the master plan showing said supermarket, showing the layout with its vehicle access from Ninehead Road. The field up here retained as part of the proposed future, now confirmed, can I say, a railway station for Wellington. Now, at the time that this application was submitted and the application was determined by the planning committee, or resolved to approve by the planning committee in May of last year, the council was still progressing at pace, trying to form its case to the government for the train station funding, and therefore a planning commission was going to read well in the government's consideration of whether Wellington should have its funding. And so the application was determined and considered against that pressure, if you like, as a corporate priority. The station, is of significance to the area. And the planning application, one of its main aims, if you like, was to deliver an access from Ninehead Road to the station site, which, as you would have seen on the layout, is a field or two away. So the delivery of the spine road was an important factor, and the early delivery of that spine road was an important factor in approving the outline application. So this was the access that was approved as part of that plan application. It shows a slight modification of the existing T-junction onto Ninehead Road, and that was all well and good. Now, there were concerns obviously raised at the outline stage, notably by Ninehead Parish, who are represented today, about the safety of that junction and the arrangements that users of the junction had experienced since its construction and the opening of the supermarket. In effect, for those who are not familiar with it, the concern was when you approach the roundabout from the town side, which is, let's say, along here, you approach the roundabout. Oh, you can't see my pointer. Why can't you see my pointer? Okay. Well, the road along the bottom of the plan is the road from the town centre. You can see the roundabout in the bottom right-hand corner. If you put your indicator on to turn into Ninehead Road, the self-cancelling mechanism of that indicator hasn't kicked in by the time you are approaching the junction into the supermarket, and the on-site feedback was that people sat in the junction pulling out of Ninehead onto Ninehead Road were perceiving people wanting to turn into that road and then are pulling out in front of them, causing a safety concern. That concern was obviously considered by the Highway Authority at the outline stage, and it was found that this junction design was safe through various audit processes, and John Fellingham, service manager from the highways team, is with us to answer any questions with regard to that later on, perhaps. So this junction was approved. Now, hearing the concerns that were raised at that time, the creation of what became known as the alternative access was written into the legal agreement as an aspiration, as a preference, that we would prefer this arrangement, which took the road, effectively took Ninehead Road straight into the site and created a subsequent T-junction to serve Ninehead Road to the north, as you can see. What this required was land from the supermarket. You can see that on the inside of the bend. You can see how the darker grey, which is the pavement, and the lighter grey carriageway encroaches into what is the supermarket land. And because of the context of the existing access being deemed safe, the necessity and requirement to get an outline consent in place to demonstrate to government that we had both the railway station land and the road there too, all secured by legal agreement, it was progressed on the basis that all best endeavours would be used to create this arrangement, and a sum of money equal to the amount of money it would cost to build that, to change the road layout to that extent, was safeguarded, and that's the 359,000 that I misquoted in my report. So the agreement was signed, and what I should say is that during the course of the planning application, the supermarket operator had given positive noises to myself in meetings that I'd had with them that that land would be available, that they saw benefit in what we were trying to do. Presumably, customers had fed back to the store manager that they had experienced difficulties in the junction, and they were saying the right things at that time, and that fed into the approach that we took, which was to ask the developer to use best endeavours to secure the land from the supermarket and then build this junction with the money that we'd safeguarded from, as you will remember, a viability challenge that meant that the site wasn't going to deliver any affordable housing and only paid a fraction of the education requirements that were asked of it. And this was on the basis that we got railway station land and delivery of the road before time. So against all of that, the agreement was signed, and then attention turns to, okay, well, we had the planning application for the reserve matters for the continuation of the Spine Road, which came before this committee. Members will recall resolving to approve that. And we had the reserve matters for the Station Square public realm as well, which was also approved. At this time, it became apparent that the stretch of Spine Road that Lidl had built to service their supermarket hadn't been built to the adoptable standard. They were under a separate legal obligation to the underlying landowner to construct. And this, and Mr. Felling will be able to tell you better, absorbed a significant amount of time from the Highway Authority and the developer, West of England Developments, trying to resolve and work with Lidl to ensure that that road, well, so there was a series of investigations that had to take place to demonstrate whether the road had been built to an adoptable standard or not. After all of those examinations and investigations, it transpired that it hadn't, and therefore a scheme of remediation had to be agreed. And this went on for many months, and sucked a lot of resource from the Highway Authority in ensuring that resolution could be found. This also required West of England Developments to give additional land to resolve some drainage issues required by the supermarket to ensure that the road could be adopted. Because, and why the adoptability is important is because as it was serving a railway station, we needed to demonstrate an adoptable road from adopted highway in Ninehead Road all the way to the station site. So what we couldn't have is a section that was not built to the required standards. And as I say, the supermarket had entered a separate agreement with the underlying landowner to build the road on their land to an adoptable standard, and they simply did not. So effectively that distracted and commandeered a lot of time. And then the issue was, well, what about this alternative access then? You're meant to be using best endeavours. Lidl had given positive noises previously. Can we move forward on this issue? Okay. Well, there's a bit of an issue with that. We now this is Lidl from liaison I've had with the developers. Lidl were concerned about the traffic management that would be required to build that junction, which would in effect mean very limited or no access to the store for a period of time whilst this work is undertaken. And effectively, it came back that Lidl could not agree to giving up the piece of land on the interior of the bend because of the implications it would have on store trading. Effectively, the store would have to be closed for a number of weeks, and this just would not be within their economic interests. So at this time, the land promoter who'd submitted the outline application was at the 11th hour of a land deal with a national house builder. You get that phone call where everyone's sort of trying to coerce you into making a decision quickly and swiftly because it's in their economic interest that you do so. However, because of the dialogue that we'd had at the outline stage and that I'd had in writing from, in particular, Ninehead Parish, my response to them was, well, this is obviously very deeply disappointing that we've got to this stage. It's an extremely frustrating outcome from a position of trying to tee this up for the greater good. However, if we are going to be asked the question, have we adhered with showing best endeavours in trying to get this land, then I was going to give it a public airing, and hence why we are here now talking about it. So I'll just show you, this was the Spine Road application. This just shows the sort of comparison of the sort of the small amount of land on the inside of the bend that we actually require, which is on the illustrated in red on the right hand side. And then just to show at the very least we need, if we can't achieve the vehicle access, so the alternative junction for cars and vehicles, what we do require is probably a smaller amount of land for a cycleway improvement, because you can see at the moment that, notwithstanding what I've just described in terms of the automatic indicator not self-cancelling, you've also got cyclists being discharged out into the mix as well here, as you can see on that photograph. So what we would like to do is take that cycle path right round the bend, and that requires that fence, the pedestrian guard fence, or the fencing you can see there on the edge of the supermarket, tucked back into the site by about another metre or so that we can take the red segregated cycleway round the corner to link into the high quality cycle infrastructure that we've secured on the Spine Road. So this is the stretch of road that wasn't built to adoptable standards by the supermarket operator. That's just the other side, but it sort of also shows some of the topographic issues, certainly with drainage, which is required west of England to sort out effectively Lidl's drainage problems. Otherwise, this road could never be adopted. And just some general shots of the junction. This tactile crossing is to be replaced by a sort of signal crossing as part of the Spine Road application to link to the high quality cycle infrastructure that runs on the northern side of the Spine Road all the way to the train station site. And then this just shows, you know, this is sort of peripheral landscaped area to the car park. We're just looking to push that fence back in, probably require a small retaining wall, and just to resurface an area at the very least to improve cycle connectivity into the site. So I've copied as an appendix the relevant section of the obligation in terms of the wording about reasonable endeavours. This is a part of it. So the developers are saying that they've used reasonable endeavours with Lidl and have been unable to secure or obtain all necessary consents, approvals and rights to control the land necessary to carry out the alternative access arrangement, and therefore they wish to be freed of that obligation. If they were to be freed of that obligation, then they would then be under a further obligation to pay us the 359,000, which is the alternative access arrangement contribution. And the council would then decide how that money is then used. So elsewhere in the agreement, there are provisions to recycle the money into other pots that were reduced as part of the outline viability exercise. That would be either education and or affordable housing, or the council could hold the monies in the future hope that land from Lidl becomes available to carry out the alternative access ourselves, or we could spend a portion of the money on carrying out the cycle improvement and then use the balance on either education and or affordable housing. So I guess what I'm trying to emphasize there is that the developers have no financial incentive, as if you like, in this situation. They don't get the money back because they've showed reasonable endeavours. We keep the money, we just recycle it to something that we otherwise reduced in order to make that pot of money for the alternative access in the first place, if you see my reasoning. So I think the conclusion of officers is one of pragmatism. It's one of frustration and annoyance first and foremost. As I said, there is a bit of pressure being applied on myself to make this decision in a way that's favourable to the developers. They've all had their fair amount to say in why I should be allowing this and why I should be allowing this quickly, which is slightly. It's noted that none of them have registered to speak at this meeting to put across their point of view, leaving me to do that for them. However, the main considerations from my point of view on a pragmatic level are there are still the overall benefits of securing the road in a timely manner and the land for the railway station. If the application doesn't get implemented, then we still don't have that land. So there's still an imperative on ensuring that the planning application is implemented. There are still a host of planning obligations being secured across the development, despite the viability challenge. And like I say, there is this recycling clause, which puts the 359,000 back into other pots that would be of benefit to the town. So the recommendation is that the planning committee consider whether the developer land promoter has demonstrated adherence with Schedule 5, which is the alternative access part that I've appended, and shall be invited to pay the alternative access arrangement contribution to the council, and that the comments of this committee be noted and referred, and the matter be referred to the head of planning to be delegated under delegated powers. Furthermore, a report would be brought back within 6 months to agree how the alternative access arrangement contribution money is spent or distributed. And this is because effectively what Lidl have said is we need to sort out our existing stretch of road. We need the highway authority. We need to carry out the remedial works, and then we need the highway authority to confirm that the remedial works have been carried out satisfactorily and that the road has then been constructed to an adoptable standard before they consider any further requests for other bits of land to be passed over. Albeit it does seem to me that they are more sympathetic to the land required for the cycleway extension, because that work would command less traffic management impact than the wider junction works. So I still remain optimistic that we would be able to achieve that at the very least, which would at least ensure that the railway station is served by good active travel linkages as far as is possible. And that 6 month, this 6 month window that I'm sort of mapping out here would give time for that work to be undertaken, for the highway authority to confirm that that work had been done satisfactorily, for us to then approach Lidl again and say, hey, how about this cycleway land? Can we get a plan in place? Can we understand how much that costs? And then maybe subtract the cost of that work from the 359,000, leaving us a balance that we can then decide how we distribute thereon. So hopefully it's a bit of a mess, but it's what happens when you try and make things happen. Unfortunately, you sort of caveat things and provide options for things to happen, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before I bring members of the public in and public speakers, I'm going to invite our solicitor to make some comments. Mr. Parsons, good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you, Chair. It's only a very small point. It's that Simon says in his conclusion there, it's the reasonable endeavours aspect. I know throughout the sort of the discussion there, it was mentioned about best endeavours, but there's quite a difference in legal terms between reasonable and best. And as Simon said in his conclusion there, the obligations as per the 106 are only for reasonable endeavours. That's just the point I wanted to just clarify. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm going to move on to the public speakers now. I only have one person registered to speak. That's Councillor Jeremy Toy. Councillor Toy, good afternoon to you. You have 3 minutes. If you push the right-hand button, the red light comes on and your 3 minutes start when you begin speaking. Welcome to the committee, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Jeremy Toy, Chair of Ninehead Parish Council. Our council and many of the parishioners in our parish have repeatedly expressed serious concerns about the dangers at the existing junction from Ninehead Road to the Little Supermarket. I experienced those myself. I will therefore not belabour that point again, and it's just been mentioned. Thank you already. Instead, I would offer three strong suggestions to reduce the threat of serious accidents and traffic congestion, perhaps regardless of what happens. The first one, however, is a suggestion to put increased pressure on the owners and management of the Lidl supermarket to reduce their concern about a temporary potential reduction in profits and instead have greater concern for the safety of their customers, suppliers, their own staff and the general public. This existing danger, and it's a daily one, can only increase once over 200 houses are occupied and a busy railway station is in constant use. Secondly, to put pressure on highways to come up with effective plans to reduce the danger as it is now, such as much improved signage, road markings, and perhaps a large stop sign coming out of Lidl to warn motorists of the risk that is there. Okay. Thirdly, to reconsider whether a development of this size can sensibly rely on a single narrow entrance to be improved a little to an equally narrow roadway shared with residents in Ninehead, Milverton and beyond, and which it's easy to see is also likely to have a negative knock-on impact on the busy road between Wellington, the A38 and the motorway. Thank you for your continued attention to this matter. It is complicated, we understand that, but it is of really deep concern to our parishioners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Troy. Before I move on to the councillors, I've got a question online, but before we do that, I'm going to invite John Fellingham from the Highways Department to, if he has any comments that he might wish to make. John, do please come up and join us. Wherever you're comfortable, John. As always, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as Mr. Fox has alluded to in his report, he's gone through in a great sense of detail in terms of the position that we're in. Obviously, as it's been mentioned, the issues that we've had relates to the construction, the initial construction of the road, which leads to Lidl store, which I can confirm that they are now going to be out on site from today, looking to commence works to improve that and bring that up to an adoptable standard. So we have a conclusion to that we finally got there, that road will be put in place. In relation to the point that's been raised and brought in front of the members today, as it's been alluded to by Mr. Fox, the original the original applications had a transport assessment provided by that, which was thoroughly assessed by the Highway Authority. The junction, as you can see on the kind of overhead plan in front of you as it stands, was tested as part of that application and was found that it did work. And it did work in all scenarios, including the train station and all other aspects that were tested as part of that. So the Highway Authority was satisfied that it had been robustly tested. As you are well aware from the previous committee where we discussed this application back in May, the alternative route access, which may you want to call it, was put on the table, and as you're aware, the 106 agreement has secured a level of monies towards delivery of that. Now, as has been set out to you by Mr. Fox in his report, the issue that has been put forward is by the Lidl not being able to obtain the land from Lidl. Now, I agree with Mr. Fox that it's a shame that we've got to this position, but members must be clear that the access that is presented to you on the plan in front of you there does work and has been tested and robustly tested, and it is acceptable in Highways terms. So it's for the members that just to make that point abundantly clear that that access arrangement in front of you does work. In terms of the best endeavours, or however our legal colleague has worded it. Reasonable, thank you. Reasonable endeavours, that is up for the members of this committee to decide whether they feel that that has been done to an extent. The Highway Authority is satisfied, albeit reluctantly, that the junction arrangement that is in front of you does work and can serve the application. We're also satisfied that the works that is going to be done by Lidl in relation to improving the section of road that you can see heading west up towards where the site will be brought up to an adoptable standard, which will then allow the Highway Authority to adopt the main spine road and also by virtue the development itself once it comes forward as part of the scheme. So from that point of view, it's very much must emphasise the point that if we couldn't adopt that section of road, then the whole internal layout of the spine road and the site wouldn't be able to be adopted by the Highway Authority. We are now satisfied that those works can be undertaken, and they will be undertaken in the coming weeks. And obviously, from our point of view, the junction is suitable and can be used as it stands at the moment. I understand the concerns from the parish council in relation to this matter. And obviously, as you know, we did do our best to try and secure the alternative access arrangement as part of the application that was put before members in May. Obviously, you come before you now to say that that alternative arrangement is not necessarily something that can be done, but it's the emphasis on the members is to say that the access arrangement that is currently there is suitable and has been robustly tested that it's able to take that traffic. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Fellingham, for that. Okay, I'm going to move on to councillors. I see and Andy Sully is online. Andy, you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points, if I may. Is it feasible if we wanted to improve the road? Can we use compulsory purchase law, which the council does have to buy property, is one thing, and the second thing is, if it was to be done, the junction, could it not be done over a longer period of time? Like Staple Grove development, they're saying we're going to do it over, I think if my memory's correct, about 60 months or 60 weeks, 60 weeks to get it done, so as not to disrupt the traffic. Could this not be done in such a way that it could still have access in and out on a daily basis for shoppers, and it could be done on over a slower basis? That's my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you for those. Who wants to pick those up? Yeah. Which would you prefer, Simon? Yeah.
We haven't considered compulsory purchase order powers because fundamentally there's no overriding public need in order for the council to invest what would be a significant amount of money in proceeding with such. As you've heard from Mr. Fellingham, the junction is fundamentally safe. This was to secure a preference, an alternative access that everyone would have felt a lot better about. But fundamentally, the existing junction is okay in safety terms. So I think to embark on a CPO process would be costly and timely, given that it would not be welcomed by Lidl. So I think that's the reason why we haven't really contemplated that route. With regard to the traffic management, you've got the issue of the crossfall and gradient here as well, which means that it's not easy, I'm told by people who know how to do these things, to easily do this in chunks, and therefore stringing out the traffic management works over an even longer period would probably have the same effect as just doing it in a short, sharp hit. It would still be damaging on the supermarket because people just wouldn't go to it knowing that getting in and out of it was extremely difficult. Plus, I'm sure there's issues around queuing vehicles from any traffic lights or whatever else back onto the roundabout, and all of a sudden you've snarled up the whole that half of Wellington. So from the advice I've been given from highways colleagues, from advice that I've had from the developers, they've sort of put several options to Lidl, and none of them have really gained any traction.
Okay, thank you for that, Simon. Thank you.
I'm going to bring John Fellingham in to comment on the highways issue aspects of that alongside Simon's comment.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Councillor Sully. In terms of the second point and the construction period, we have to, with Staple Grove, we have a lot more highway that we can divert traffic onto to keep it moving. Hence why we can have a 60-week build period but still maintain a free flow of traffic movement. Here we'd have a standard carriageway width, which with the construction work that we need to take into it would mean that road would need to be effectively closed off while that work is undertaken, which from a little point of view economically, I can understand why they would have a bit of an issue with doing that and undertaking that. From our point of view as the Highway Authority, is that Mr. Fox has alluded to, any traffic management would also spread further out from there and onto the roundabout that's to the, as you can see from the plan just there, which would mean that that would have to be all signalised, which again would cause issues and concerns for us in terms of maintaining safety of the free flow of movement of traffic on other routes while those works are being undertaken. Believe me when I say we have looked at many different scenarios of how we could try and make this would make it work in terms of delivery of these works, because we've had to go through these permutations to undertake the works which they're currently going to do now. And the developer came up with a solution that took that round, but that element wouldn't be there in terms of them being able to deliver the junction, the alternative junction arrangement, because obviously this is solely to solve, and the other section is to solve the access to the Lidl store and bring the road up to an adoptable standard. In terms of putting this works into the mix, other elements would have already been built out by then. So the options that they have now in terms of a brownfield site that they can spread and move their elements around on won't be there. So we have to kind of look at what the junction arrangements are there now and how we could manage that within the confines of the highway network. And as we alluded to, there's a number of options that just wouldn't necessarily work on that. So we have gone through the motions that the best that we could with this. And as I say, it comes back to, again, to the point that, as I said earlier, the current arrangement does work as it stands.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fellingham. Okay, Quill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I'm the local member here, so which I perhaps should have said at the outset, but no, I'm not actually. I'm the local member for Ninehead, but it's close enough. This is very disappointing, and you know, to have a national company like Lidl acting in a dog in a manger way like this is, as I say, very disappointing. Because, as Mr. Toy has alluded to, their customers are equally at risk here. Now, I've driven this road, and I appreciate that from a design perspective, it's probably compliant with what's required, but I can see exactly where the risks are, and the risks are coming off the roundabout. You really don't have much time before you get up to the junction. Also, I think what is less well known is the fact that this route is the one suggested by Google Maps if you're leaving the motorway and heading off to Milverton, Wiveliscombe or West Somerset. So it carries quite a lot of traffic, which is why Ninehead Parish Council are absolutely terrified about people getting stuck in the river valley on the far side in deep floodwater when it floods. So there is a much wider picture here than simply this little junction, because I think if we could get some sort of better traffic management here, we would have a better control over hazards and risks in the area. And as I say, the fundamental risks are to people using the station, people who will be living in the development, and of course the customers of Lidl themselves. And I would argue probably that's about 30% of the traffic for each of those three sections. But I appreciate that we are where we are, that wonderful phrase that seems to get in everywhere. I was told, and I can't remember who told me, so I could forgive me for that, that actually access could have been maintained while this work was going on. But Mr. Fellingham has cast doubt on that. But what I would say is, if they are bringing the road up to standard, are they maintaining access while they're digging up the road this week to bring it up to the standard that they should have done in the first place? I don't know. And the final question was, this is the only question really after my rant about this, because I'm, as I said, very disappointed by the outcome, is that what would prompt the council to take action to improve the safety of this junction? Would there have to be, I don't know how bad it would have to get, because clearly the council can't measure near misses, but it does have accident statistics, and notwithstanding the fact it's been designed properly, would a history of accidents actually prompt a rethink on this? Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll go back to Mr. Fellingham and ask him to answer those that he can. And I do understand your concerns about the safety of that junction. It is far more important than just a junction to a supermarket. I agree. Okay, Mr. Fellingham.
Thank you, Councillor Wren. I believe I covered that point just now in terms of where they're looking to do the works at the present time, which they'll be doing over the next couple of weeks, they have found a way of doing the traffic management that takes a little bit of the land that's owned by the landowner, and they can move it around and they can make that work, which obviously we're looking at and making sure that that can be maintained and managed. But as I say, any potential for delivery for the alternative access arrangement would be far later in the project and further down the line when other elements have been delivered, which would then make the ability to kind of deliver that and utilise those other routes a lot more difficult and a lot more challenging to do. I think the fundamental issue that we have here, and as Mr. Fox has alluded to here, is the fact that the junction itself would need land that is owned by Lidl to be delivered. And Lidl have obviously made that clear, even though they initially said that they were willing to have a discussion, that they've now made that clear that they're not necessarily wanting to kind of carry on those discussions with us. So we still would need an element of their land to undertake and deliver that junction, irrespective of whether we could get suitable traffic management in place or not.
Does that help, Will?
Well, yes, there was a second. Well, just to back on the point that Mr. Fellingham's just answered. Well, if it's a question of scheduling the work, then this could be put at the front, presumably. I don't know. But the other point was under what level of accidents or near misses would prompt the council to perhaps have another look at this?
In terms of the accidents, we would obviously have to see that there's a pattern of accidents that are recorded and sent to us, because obviously the accident data we receive is from the police, local constabulary. So we would have to see that there is a pattern of the accidents, because we get the full detail of the accident report. So that we would have to go through that detail of that report to make sure that there is a correlation. And I wouldn't want to see that happen. I really wouldn't. But it would be about seeing if there's a correlation in terms of what those accidents have been caused by, for us to be able to build an evidence package to be able to then take the suitable action. Because as you know, we have to make sure that there is a body of evidence to support any movement that we wish to do in terms of doing stuff. So unless we have that information, there's not much more we can do.
Okay, I'm going to bring our solicitor back in at this point, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you very much. I think it might just help to clarify that obviously why it's before the committee now to determine whether or not the developer has used reasonable endeavours to secure the Lidl land. And I kind of think that, just to perhaps clarify, that my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that obviously the existing arrangements aren't deemed acceptable. These were in essence favourable. And that's why and that's what was determined the first time it came before the committee to determine the actual principal permission, which is why the alternative was included in the 106. So we're really just saying that the favourable scheme hasn't been achievable. Have they acted reasonably in trying to secure the land and the reasonable endeavours? And therefore, if they have, then the contribution is acceptable and then can be used as per terms of the 106.
May I just clarify the reasonable endeavours point? That is, the onus is solely on the person trying to make the arrangement, not the other party, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, I think that is a helpful point, that basically it only binds the developer to use reasonable endeavours which aren't to their sort of financial detriment. It's not best endeavours where they have to do absolutely everything. So that's where the limit is. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go in the order that people have caught my eye. So it's Councillor Farber-High next, followed by Stephen Pokesey, please. Councillor Farber-High.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for waking me up. Few questions. May I suggest that reasonable endeavours are taken to improve the signage improvement, because I think it's imperative that the signage is actually done right, because this is one of the safety issues. And I think, likewise, I like to see the fund, the £359,000 that is actually there, to be allocated towards education and doctor surgery, both of which are much needed in the area. And I think these are the opportunities that we can actually utilize. On a different note, that is probably not related to this planning application, where are we on track with RNEP and the fundings? Because I think that is important. That what I'm referring to is the rail network enhancement pipeline funding that brings forward the funding for the potential new station. And how far are we behind with that, or because potentially that can actually help and support this one as well? Thank you.
John?
Well, I'll refer to Mr. Fellingham to answer the specific point about signage and signs and lines. I think that was raised by Mr. Toy as well. With regard to the railway station, you'll be aware that there's more positive news on that of late. The latest that I'm working, the latest situation as far as I'm concerned is that Network Rail are remobilising themselves in terms of a project team to take things forward. Now, you never quite know whether the money has been secured, allocated. You know, there's terminology, isn't there, about whether money has, whether it's in the bank account of Network Rail. I don't think it is in the bank account of Network Rail, but there is greater clarity and certainty that it will be in a reasonable timescale, which has given Network Rail sufficient credence and comfort to remobilise and effectively reform their project management team that we were working with a year or so ago. So we are waiting for that team to reassemble, and then the discussions that were effectively halted over a year ago will recommence, and that's effectively what they've said to us. You know, we will come back to you shortly, and we will pick up things where we left them a year ago. And of course, what we've done through the planning process is carry on as if the project had never stalled. So we've carried on with the reserve matters for the Spine Road. We've got the Station Square reserve matters in place. So everything's still moving forward. We have slightly relaxed the timescales for the delivery of the Spine Road and Station Square because the foot had been taken off the gas in terms of the funding. We didn't have it for a while, so you know, why hold them to the same breakneck speed of delivery? And of course, this Little Road issue was absorbing time and effort from the people that were also involved in delivering the road. So it only felt fair that, you know, they'd been handed this situation. They had to resolve it. So the council has always been carrying on as if, you know, it was always going to be positive news, and lo and behold, it has resulted in that way. So I hope that in fullness of time, we will be talking again with Network Rail on a more regular basis to bring the station forward. So I'll just pass over to Mr. Fellingham to talk about signs and lines.
Okay,
John.
I get all the thrilling subjects, don't I? Signs and lines. Yes. We can take that away and have a chat with our traffic management team, because obviously we've secured the agreement for the delivery of the Spine Road and as it stands, but we can take that away and have a look at that with traffic management, see if there's anything that can be done to add some additional signage in. So I'll leave that with me. I'll take that away.
Thank you for that. Right, moving on, councillors. Stephen Pugsley, please, followed by Carol Ellis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the nub of it then lies in the middle of paragraph 4.3, doesn't it? If the alternative access could not be brought forward and all reasonable endeavours could be demonstrated, then the developer would not be required to construct the alternative access. It is quite difficult for us to judge, I would suggest, that all reasonable endeavours have been demonstrated, other than the evidence that the officers have been able to bring forward to us this afternoon. But to be honest, in the absence of anything that suggests that they haven't used all reasonable endeavours, I don't think we've got very much of an option. Mr. Fellingham has quite clearly reiterated that the current junction arrangements are acceptable in highways terms. They may not be the ideal, but they are acceptable. The officers, I think, are telling us that reasonable endeavours have been demonstrated. And under those circumstances, I don't think we have really any alternative other than to say that in our consideration, we believe that those reasonable endeavours have been demonstrated. And so if at some point we need to move the recommendation, I will do so, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I tend to agree with councillor Pugsley. I mean, you know, they asked Lidl, can we need to buy some of your land in order to do this? Will you sell it? Can we have some of your land? No. Are you sure we can't have some of your land? No, they don't have powers as a council would say, well, we're going to do this then. If you won't give it to us, and I'm not even sure them offering them money would have, you know, like, I know, we'll bribe you to go. I'm not even sure that would have worked. So I think we are where we are, and it's annoying and it's frustrating. But just to reiterate, I think the importance that I think members of this committee, well, certainly me and others, you've already said you're going to look at the can we improve the traffic management, please? Because I'm just very conscious that yes, it might meet the tick the highways box of this is acceptable, but there's often a gulf in terms of the highways view and then the lived experience of people who actually use the junction. So I just think I place very high store on us doing everything we possibly can as a highways authority to introduce safety improvements, any safety improvements that are possible. We shouldn't just be waiting for accidents to happen and then go, oh dear, all sorts of accidents, oh dear. Perhaps we should do something. We know that there's a risk. We've been warned. We've got, you know, that local experience. So just really, really important that something happens as a result of that.
Thank you, Caro. Next on my list is Nick O'Donnell, please, and then Norman.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, following on from Councillor Ellis, and you know, I think the proposal, the alternatives for access proposal, is very sensible, and it is quite disappointing that we can't move it forward. But I take the fact that what evidence have we got whether that they haven't thought reasonable. I was just wondering if highways have also considered when they're coming to the management plan the cyclists. I mean, there is a cycle path coming down that Spine Road. A lot of more people coming down from the train station and the development, and cyclists will really suffer if they've mistaken a car with an indicator. So I just wonder if highways ever consider cyclists when they're doing their modelling.
I can say that cycling is, I've expressed during my presentation the fact that we want at least some land to improve the footway, cycleway provision on the inside the bend to line up with a crossing and the high quality infrastructure that we've secured on the Spine Road to the train station. So I'm working on the basis they won't need to be in the carriageway. They will be on a segregated cycle path, hopefully with the gift of a small amount of land from Lidl. Whether we have to purchase that or not will come to pass through the discussions. If the option's there and we have to pay for it, I guess we have to pay for it. But we prefer that, given the trouble they've put the Highway Authority to over the last few months, the amount of time that the Highway Authority have taken to be involved in the investigations to work out whether the road was built to an adoptable standard, and that the fact that the underlying land promoter developer has acceded in terms of providing land for temporary access arrangements so they can do those restoration works and sorted out their drainage works, you think the very least you could do is give up a piece of land. You know, whilst it doesn't benefit the land promoter developer directly, it benefits the greater good generally, and that will be in the land promoter's benefit, because it ultimately means that, you know, it's a better scheme. So I'm hoping that and Lidl were advised of this meeting. They, you know, have, I think, seen my report and haven't commented. So they've been given every opportunity to come and give their side of things. But I do have emails that leave the door ajar to a discussion once all their other issues have been resolved.
Okay, Norman.
That's answered one question. The other question was, this junction is perceived to be adequate at the moment, from what John Fallingham has told us. Is it adequate for likely future traffic generated by the station? And if the answer is, well, maybe not, are we hanging on to the funds from this for that future event when there's a highways improvement scheme?
Mr. Fallingham.
As I said earlier, the transport assessment that was put in for the original application robustly tested this junction. including future scenarios based on the residential development and the potential for a train station, and it was found to be acceptable and workable. So in answer to your question, yes, it has been.
Okay, right. Almost everybody on the committee's had a bite. Any further comments before we move on? Okay, so Stephen, I'm going to go back to your proposal. Are you still happy to propose this?
I am,
with
Mr.
the
Chairman.
wording
So,
as
so
suggested by,
we have considered it, and that we believe that the land promoter has demonstrated the adherence with, and we are asking that our comments be noted, particularly though in relation to further safety works at that junction.
Yeah.
And that the matter then be delegated to the head of planning to determine under delegated powers.
Okay, and
So-
a separate note and a 6 month report to
Yeah.
come back. Yes,
Please.
please. Yes,
Yeah.
please. To show where the safety improvements have been made. Okay, John?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
fine, yep.
that's fine. I just want to make sure you didn't feel you'd just been painted into a corner. Okay, okay.
Well, yeah.
All right,
it's,
so
it's fine.
we've had it proposed. Is there a seconder for this proposal? Thank you, Councillor Faber. Okay, can I see those in favour, please? No. Are you abstaining, Will? Yep, you're going to abstain. Will's going to abstain. Everybody else is,
Did you abstain?
Will abstain. And Nick, and you. Sorry, my apologies, Nick, I missed your hand. My apologies. Okay, thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to our second item today, which is applications 53/24/006, which is the land west of Dean Road at Copford St Luke. There's an application for outline with all matters reserved except access for the erection of up to 80 dwellings with associated access, road, footway, cycleway provisions, open space, allotments, landscaping, surface water retention and ancillary works. And the presenting officer is Anthony Peck. Anthony, good afternoon and welcome to the committee. When you are ready.
Thank you. This application is for residential scheme for 80 dwellings. Following slide just shows the red line of the application site. So the application for the residential is to the north, got allotments to the northwest, and the red line here shows the access through a consented scheme that came to committee a couple of months ago for the reserve matters. So just some aerial context. So Village of Copford St Luke, the appeal scheme where you had the reserve matters application recently, application site, and then the allotments in the corner. There's an indicative master plan showing one way that the scheme can come forward. So we've got the green central area, public open space, SUDS to the south and northeast, connection through to the existing consented scheme, access from Denny Road. We've got pedestrian connections through to Manning and Birch Farm Lane, and then upgrades to the public right of way. This is an outline that essentially the master plan shows a concept plan for how it came forward. What will be conditioned as part of the approval for the outline is a set of parameter plans. So we've got the access, main vehicle access through the middle of the site through the consented scheme. And say we've got connections through to Manning and upgrades to Birch Farm. The land use one essentially shows the residential site, green open space in the middle, public open space and landscaping around the edge. And again, more of a green infrastructure showing the SUD scheme and existing vegetation and tree planting orchard. Some of the aerial context photos taken from the applicant's design and access statement. I just want to show the context of the site. So Village of Cotford St Luke, the consented scheme, access through to the application site, pedestrian links, and the Birch Farm Crescent upgrade. And in this field here, we've got the allotments for existing and future provision. And the photograph you can see is shown so. Just a slightly different perspective. So again, looking back at the application site, see Village of Cotford, and then the connections into the existing established core, and then you've got the co-op and Chapel Cafe in the middle, or within walking distance, public transport along Dean Road. A few photographs within the site now. So this one is taken from just within inside Dean Road from the consented scheme, existing vegetation, application site. So you've got the drainage scheme on the consented scheme, and then residential, you can see it on to the north there. In a slightly different view, this one is taken from Tithall Lane, looking back towards the application site. You can see the row of trees, tree belt there. That's Dean Road, and that's just a close-up version. Well, you can't see the cursor. So the top right image just shows existing landscape along Dean Road, and that's what you can see in the sort of background of the main photograph. Another picture of the application site, just a different season, so don't have so much grass, but just looking across to the existing properties in Tithall Lane, you can see on the horizon there, just where those velvet trees are. A couple of photographs of Birch Farm Lane, so highway on the left, and then goes into a footpath which connects back into the village. So the key considerations, it's an outline application of 80 dwellings, of which 25% will be affordable housing. It's a non-allocated site, but it is adjacent to and does integrate with the consented scheme allowed at appeal. Currently, the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year land supply, and therefore the NPPF tilted balance is engaged. Benefits of the scheme: housing delivery, affordable housing, biodiversity enhancements, which go beyond the 10%. Community infrastructure are considered to outweigh the adverse impacts of the scheme. And matters such as design, so scale and appearance, layout and landscaping are reserved matters, which will be subject to being informed by the quality review panel. It will go back to QRP twice before it informs or comes back in for an application for reserved matters. So the recommendation is 1 of approval, subject to the conditions, and 1 of 6 outlined in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Anthony. Right, okay, I've got one public speaker on that, and that is Hal Parsons, who's the applicant from Hallam. Good afternoon, Mr. Parsons. Welcome to the committee. When you're comfortable, push the right-hand button. The red light comes on. Your 3 minutes start when you begin speaking. So whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Hal Parsons. I work for Hallam Land, who are the applicant for this scheme. Our proposal is for 80 high-quality sustainable homes, new areas of public open space, and an extensive allotment provision, and it has been recommended for approval by your officers. This new scheme is a logical next phase to follow the adjacent development being brought through by Lovell, which was a Hallam promotion approved at appeal in 2023. And as members will no doubt be aware, the former Taunton Deane area is unable to demonstrate a 5-year supply of land for housing. This application offers the opportunity to approve a well-thought and considered scheme in a location which has already been found by an inspector to be sustainable. Not only will the proposals assist in restoring the housing land supply, but the additional 20 affordable homes that will be delivered are a huge benefit. And since the adjacent development was considered 3 years ago, the number of households on the register in Somerset has concerningly increased from 11,387 to 12,773. Moving to technical matters, there are no technical objections to this proposal from internal or statutory consultees. There is no objection from the Parish Council, and there have been just 12 public objectors, which by major housing proposal standards is extremely low. The scheme will adequately mitigate against its impacts and contribute to community infrastructure. This includes approximately £1.48 million in SIL monies, of which up to 15% will be paid to the parish council, approximately 244,000 towards education provision, 38,000 towards NHS primary care, over 23,000 towards youth facilities or a skate park, and legal obligations for 10% BNG and phosphate neutrality. In terms of the scheme itself, while detailed design is subject to reserve matters, the homes will be built to the latest energy efficiency standards, including heat pumps, EV car charging, and energy efficient building fabric. In the parcel where the housing is proposed, around almost half of the land will be green and blue infrastructure, such as public open space, orchards, play areas, sustainable drainage, and a commitment made to a central green space within the residential parcel itself. And this is in addition to the allotments proposed, which are for double the scheme's requirement in order to address existing underprovision. Plus the upgrade of the well-used local footpath to be all-weather. The site is one of the few in the area that has the benefit of its own phosphate mitigation, meaning that delivery can be relied upon. So in summary, the proposals are in a sustainable location and there are no technical reasons to refuse the application. And I urge members to follow their officer's recommendation and grant permission for this good quality, sensible proposal. Somerset needs homes and Somerset needs affordable homes. Thank you.
Spot on timing. Thank you very much, Mr. Parsons. I just remind everybody that the numbers mentioned by Mr. Parsons are, of course, the standard that we would expect from every developer. And that would be very welcome if and when this application were to be agreed. Okay. Did you want to speak, Councillor Rigby?
There we go. Thank you, Chair. I just want to speak very briefly as one of the two local members in this area. I just want to say that I support the officer recommendation.
Thank you for that. Okay, councillors, members of the committee. Nick O'Donnell, followed by Caro, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question was about the allotments and why they were so far away from the main residents. Looking at it, I also noticed from the parish council that they've made a bid for the allotments, and I was wondering whether that they've asked for it to be part of the S106. I was wondering if that's something we can add to the S106. I think allotments are a very useful thing for the community. I think they should be. I don't know who will end up owning the allotments. Whether that will be the committee, is it just for the new development, or is it for the whole of Cotford St Luke as a whole? In which case, should it be transferred to the parish council, or the allotments here in Taunton are owned by the town council and maintained and leased, obviously, to allotment holders. I was also wondering why cars have been directed down the lane, whereas there isn't an entrance straight on from Tithill. And the other thing I was just going to ask about, so that's one thing about the allotments, why the position is so far away from the main development. The other thing is about drainage. I noticed there's a lot of conditions about drainage, and I was wondering, I don't know whether it's time to bring it up, but the new emphasis on trying to retain water where it falls, new developments about trying to capture water and use it within the house itself. We have solar panels for energy, we have better insulation, but new developments coming in about trying to retain water where it is to stop it running off and being used in developments. I wonder if that's something we can start looking at.
Harvesting rainwater, using grey water for toilet flushing.
Whether it can be added to some design, in future. As part of our drainage.
They're not currently building regs, but I'll ask Mr. Pick if he knows of any of the answers to the questions on the allotments.
Maybe just the drainage one first. I mean, the design access statement does talk about some of those good sustainable principles in terms of retaining rainwater harvesting, etc. In terms of the technical SUD scheme, then that's been prepared to a level that the LFA can be comfortable and the environmentalians have no objection to ensuring the development can come forward. The greater detail will come forward as the layout and design all gets finalised as part of the reserve matters, and then actually the surface water management plan will align with that. But some of the good principles are referred to in the design access statement to inform the surface water management plan. Just going back to then the allotments, so I think there's been a bit of discussion around where they should be. I think they've chosen there a little bit just in terms of being able to have capacity for future expansion. And there are connections then into the existing or the proposed residential scheme. The section 106 should capture that discussion around who takes on the allotments. So the provision of, and also the ongoing management of. So as I say, the parish council have flagged it. So it's caught through the 106, and then those discussions will continue to take place as we sort of go through that with those final agreements.
Okay, Karen?
Yes, some questions and an ask really, plea. I couldn't see in the document. When I was trying to spot what's the deal on renewable energy here, and there's reference to Fabric First, and then the speaker, I think, said heat pump. The word heat pump might have escaped from his lips. So I'm just not clear. Maybe I missed something when I was reading the documents, in which case, huge apologies, but could you clarify for me what's been said in relation to this development in terms of on-site renewable energy? And I couldn't spot anything in the conditions. Could we have something in a condition relating to a statement about how renewable energy will be integrated?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, look, so we haven't put a specific condition or informative on. The details would be obviously considered at the reserve matters stage, but if members wanted us to flag it up, I think certainly we could add an informative on saying that sustainable construction opportunities should be looked at in the reserve matters.
To be fair to Mr. Parsons, he did indicate that they would be using the latest specifications, so I would expect that to be the case. But that's because Mr. Parsons said that's what they're going to do. So I think an informative is perfectly reasonable.
Perfect. We'll add an informative if that could be minuted, Josh.
Yeah. Okay. So if we add that to the to that, we didn't get a. Did you get a proper answer to the allotment question, Nick? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Kara?
Can you just clarify what's the difference in informative and something in a planning condition?
Please, Zach.
Yes, so a planning condition is something that's required to be complied with, and would normally require them to submit details. If for instance, this had been a full application and we hadn't had any details of the sustainability measures that would be implemented, that's the sort of thing we would normally put on as a condition, that details to be supplied. With an informative, it's more a suggestion that they bear that in mind at the reserve matters stage. As I say, yeah.
Maybe want to add, I suppose it is subject to a condition that it has to go to quality review panel, and one of their big elements is sustainability as well. So that will come out through that process, and that will inform the subsequent reserve matters. So just going back to the design access statement, it's fairly generic in terms of those sorts of what you'd like to see. For the QRP, quality review panel, in terms of looking at reserve matters before they lodge, should bring those issues out, and then we'll make that assessment for it. But I think the advice now just ensures that it's flagged.
Okay, and of course we've heard Mr. Parsons say that it would be the latest specifications that were being used. So I think everybody's on the same page. And when we get to reserve matters, I would expect to see in the reserve matters application the level of renewable energy being used. And I would imagine it to be, and I'm guessing here, but I would imagine it to be ground source heat pumps. I would like to see grey water harvesting. rainwater harvesting. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see what is brought forward by the applicant when we get to reserve matters. We're not at reserve matters yet. Okay, so I've got a couple of people still to speak. I've got Gwil and followed by Habib and then Rosemary, please. And then Andy Sully online. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to clarify. I noticed from the parish council comments, they were critical of the existing, what they call the existing flood attenuation system. I just wanted to clarify that this, whatever's there existing, which may have been created for previous developments, has no relation to this development at all, and this will have to provide its own flood mitigation and attenuation, and hopefully infiltration and everything else that we're worried about these days, rather than, because I was a little bit confused, and it would appear that the parish council may also be a little bit uncertain as to what the arrangements are.
I think some of those parish council concerns are to the original scheme and some of the flooding to the south. So this application itself will be assessed on its own merits. The flood risk assessment has been, say, referred to Environment Agency and the LFA. Concerns were initially raised, but subsequent to the addendum that came in, both consultees are now satisfied that it can manage its own surface water drainage, subject to the final detail.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
Councillor Papa, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mine is actually more of a clarification than anything else. I understand £244,000 goes towards education contribution from both open houses as well as affordable. And yet when it comes to NHS contribution, it's actually from open houses. Is there any explanation on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the way our policies work. It's like SIL. So, for instance, there's a discount for, there's exemption for affordable housing under SIL, and we apply the same in terms of Section 106. So we can deliver the affordable housing.
Just aware it is explicitly as per the consultation responses come back, so it must be in their formula that NHS don't account for the affordable housing as part of the formula. That's the distinction. Chronic shortage on buses, and I think maybe at some stage we should actually balance that.
I hear what you say, and I certainly more than happy to acknowledge it. However, we're at a point where we have to deliver what we can deliver. And that's what happens. The NHS requirement changes as well as the education when it comes to affordable housing, because that's how we deliver affordable housing. I would that it wasn't so. Rosemary.
I feel if we've discussed this actual application before, but have we decided that there's any particular way we don't want the access to this particular book, this particular site? Had we said that before? I kind of remember something that there's a problem with the children from the existing school getting onto the site.
I'm not sure the detail. I know it certainly was a recommendation of committee, the last appeal for the consented scheme. So there is a residential scheme for 80 dwellings in a local centre. Yeah, so the appeal site. So we've got Denny Road, and this application was before committee. There was a committee overturn, subsequently allowed an appeal. So access is already consented through
the appeal scheme. So this application site takes same access from Denny Road. So no change to the access or the pedestrian connections onto Denny Road. So no highway issues flagged as part of this one.
Councillor Solly.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. I'm the other ward member with Mike Rigby. We've been over the past, I don't know, year or so, been kept informed by Hallam of the development, and like Mike, I'm happy with it. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Solly. Stephen Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm always very attentive to and mindful of comments of local members, and I think it is striking that both local members this afternoon have expressed their support for the application. The second is, and I'm sure that points raised by Councillor Ellis and others are absolutely right, and they can be added as informatives. So that I would welcome. But with that addition, I would like to propose the recommendation.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry.
Would you mind, Chair, if I just propose that we include a comment to the fact that because as we appreciate this is an outline, some of the recommendations within section 3.1 have got financial figures in them. It was just to include a proviso that says either indexation or an increase in those sums within the 106, just so that it catches. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yes, I think that's be taken on board, please, chaps. Okay, at 3.1. So can I see a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Will. Okay, any other comments before we go to the vote? I see those in favour then, please. No, it's not quite. I don't think everybody, I'm not sure what Rosemary's doing.
Against.
Against, right, okay. So that's one. Okay. Rosemary against. Okay, thank you very much. Right, our final item. And I just want to go now to Zach for the update on the appeal decisions and anything we might want to discuss.
Thank you, Chair. Not much to go through. There were two appeal decisions, both dismissed. Members may recall this first one, which is land to the west of Blagden Hill Road, Blagden Hill, which was the erection of one single-storey dwelling. It was actually a member overturn. It was originally recommended for approval by officers on the basis that they felt that the harm to the national landscapes or former AONB was not significant, but members felt otherwise, as certainly they're entitled to do, and planning permission was refused. There was a bit of a discussion around a potential discrepancy between our local plan map, online map, and where the national landscape boundary lies. But the inspector was very clear that it's not our responsibility as the council to designate the AONBs. So they took the national landscapes definitive map as the being definitive, and it was agreed that it was within the national landscape. Members may recall this was one for a large single-storey dwelling. It was quite a substantial footprint, and it was on what we would term backland development behind the existing former development. And the inspector felt that there would be an element of harm, even though it's single story, to the national landscape, and dismissed the appeal in line with members' decision. So pat on the back for members, I think. There was an application for an award of costs, as there often is in these cases. I mean, I think firstly, the inspector felt that it's a matter of judgment. It's a subjective matter. So just because members went against, officers had recommended one way and members determined a different, that's not in itself unreasonable at all. That's democracy in action, isn't it? At the end of the day, as long as all of the planning considerations are material and that it's had a proper debate. And the inspector felt there wasn't a case to answer to in terms of costs. So the costs award was not made. So I'm pleased with that. The other appeal was at 11 Wordsworth Drive in Taunton. It was formation of a dropped curb and sort of a parking area to the front of 11 Wordsworth Drive. The key question here was whether or not safe access and egress could be obtained. The inspector felt that whilst there was a reference had been made to another site nearby where a new driveway and drop curb had been allowed, in that instance there was sufficient space within the site to manoeuvre and exit in forward gear. Yeah, in this instance there's an existing porch, and the inspector felt that that inhibits the ability to enter and exit in forward gear, and felt that with the lay-by outside the house, the fact is, in reality, people would drive on and then reverse off, or reverse on and then drive off in forward gear, and it wasn't seen as a safe option. There was some reference made to potential mobility disability for the applicant, but the inspector did feel that certain other adaptations could be made, because at the moment there's a stepped access, and the inspector felt that it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a drop curb and parking to the front, that other measures could be implemented to make it more accessible to those less mobile. So that appeal was dismissed as well. I'm not aware on the agenda of any new appeals having been received. Obviously, we'll pick, if there are, we'll pick them up in the next agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And it's always nice when we don't lose our appeals. Very jealous of our record, and I intend to keep it. So it's very important that we do. It also shows that when the committee makes the correct decision, we are supported by the planning inspectors sometimes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance this afternoon.